They want Eric Lowour. Yes, them. The same that ripped October out of Toronto's hands. The same blue uniform that still stings when it shows up on the feed. And now a trade idea surfaces, sending one of the most efficient arms on the tour to California. It's not an internal rumor, not a front office leak. It's a simulated proposal published by of. But when the subject involves a starter with a 3.18 ERA potentially heading to Los Angeles, the conversation stops being hypothetical. It becomes real debate. Because the name is Eric Lowour, and the timing is delicate, the Blue Jays have a decision to make. Lowour wants to be a starter in Toronto. He's made that clear. The problem? The rotation is crowded. Multiple arms are competing for spots as spring training winds down, and he'll be a free agent after the 2026 season. So the question surfaces on its own, almost inevitable. Do you trade him now or hold the line? Powell's proposal is straightforward. Dodgers receive Eric Lowour. Blue Jays receive shortstop Kellen Lindsay and right-handed pitcher Brooks Auger. Two prospects. And that's where the tension begins. Lowour wasn't a background character in 2025. He finished with 3.18 ERA over 15 starts, totaling 104.2 innings. In August and September, he was the best arm in the rotation. Not the flashiest, not the most marketable, the most consistent. And consistency in September carries different weight. Now pause, because there's a detail that shifts the tone. He lost his arbitration case against the club. That creates noise, not a fracture, but noise. And when you combine a lost arbitration hearing, approaching free agency, and a pitcher publicly stating he wants a permanent starting role, the equation tightens. Yet almost no one talks about the other side of the coin. The Blue Jays aren't desperate. An article from points out something important. Lowour has value both as a left-handed starter and as a swingman. Teams needing rotation depth see that exact profile as an emergency solution. Depth wins games in April. Versatility saves seasons in July. And Lowour offers both. But then comes the Dodgers factor. According to the simulation, Los Angeles could have interest following a rough spring from the most financially aggressive organization in MLB, dubbed by many as the king of wealth, could move to reinforce its rotation. And here's where recent trauma creeps in. Toronto has seen this movie before. They watch players leave undervalued and blossom elsewhere. There's a quiet fear no fan likes to admit. What if he becomes a Cy Young candidate there? It's not superstition. It's history. But let's step back and analyze coldly. The proposed package, Lindsay and Auger, represents two promising players who barely cracked the Dodgers' organizational top 30. For a starter with a 3.18 ERA and strong late-season performance, that feels light, very light, unless Toronto sees something the public doesn't. Because the risk isn't losing talent. It's losing value. If you trade Lowour, you need real return. Not just two names to fill out a development report. But what if the issue isn't the return? What if it's timing? Lowour is under control through 2026. This isn't a pure half-year rental. That gives Toronto leverage to wait until the trade deadline, when desperate teams overpay. Trading now would mean betting his value has already peaked. That's a bold bet. There's also the clubhouse factor. Lowour mattered down the stretch in 2025. He took the ball in pressure games. He stabilized the rotation when it wobbled. Players like that aren't just spreadsheet numbers. They balance schedules. They absorb wear. And Toronto knows what happens when reliable arms disappear midseason. But the math speaks loudly too. If the front office believes he isn't part of the long-term plan, every 2026 start could be seen as a missed opportunity to develop someone younger. Then the decision becomes strategic. Maximize 2026 with him on the mound, or accelerate the cycle and inject youth into the system. There's another point few are mentioning. Lowour wants to start. If the rotation is already full, dissatisfaction becomes a possibility. A pitcher who sees himself as a full-time starter may not easily embrace a hybrid role. Does that affect the clubhouse? Maybe a little, maybe a lot. It depends on leadership. Ignoring it would be naive. Let's simplify brutally. What do the Dodgers gain? An experienced left-handed starter with a solid ERA who can immediately stabilize a rotation. What do the Blue Jays gain? Two prospects who still have to prove everything. It's present value versus uncertain future. And Toronto just walked away from a painful fall classic against the same rival. The memory is fresh. Canadian fans don't forget quickly when the other side lifts the trophy. Dealing with Los Angeles requires more than technical evaluation. It requires stomach. But it also requires maturity. Rivalry can't block smart decisions. Now comes the question that truly divides Canada. Is Eric Lowour essential to 2026? If the answer is yes, the discussion ends. If the answer is it depends, the door is open. Depends on what? On how the rotation looks by opening day, on the health of other arms, on performance through the rest of spring training. Most of all, on how the front office views a competitive window. Toronto is still trying to contend at the top. This isn't a rebuild. It's continuity with adjustments. Trading a consistent starter in that context is delicate. Sometimes a mistake isn't doing too little. It's doing too much. There's also a psychological layer. The external narrative has already started. The Dodgers should be aggressive and get Lowour. Notice the framing? Los Angeles as protagonist. Toronto as supplier. That should bother people. The Blue Jays cannot be seen as a support market for a financial superpower. If a deal happens, it must reflect true value balance. Otherwise, the noise will be loud. Very loud. Does approaching free agency create pressure? Yes, but not enough to justify panic. If Lowour posts another ERA around 3.00 through July, the price rises. Simple. And if he regresses, risk always exists. That's why rotation decisions define seasons. At its core, this potential trade exposes something bigger, the challenge of managing surplus quality. Having too many capable arms is a good problem. It's still a problem. When the calendar tightens, someone becomes expendable. Maybe the front office is simply testing the market, measuring temperature. Or maybe they're considering turning the page before free agency dictates the terms. Canadian fans want clarity, direction. They don't want the feeling of fueling a rival. So the final question isn't whether the trade could work. It's whether it makes sense for Toronto. Today, not for Los Angeles. For Toronto. Because the goal isn't to please an American analyst. It's to build a roster that survives October. If Lowour is part of that, he stays. If he isn't, the return better justify looking at 2026 without regret. So what's your call? Hold on to the 3.18 ERA, or take the prospects and bet on tomorrow. The decision may not be made yet, but the debate has officially begun.